say it wrong every time.
Oh, you do? Uh-oh. Oh, no. It's one of those days I'm like, I just know I'm going to pronounce it wrong. The way I think is not the way it's. At least.
We're live.
Okay, we're live. Thank you. All right. We're going to start tonight with recognition. We have two special people being recognized today. We're going to start with recognizing our outgoing board directors, and that is Director Riley, who has served a full term of 4 years, and Vivian Vodova, who has graciously stepped in when we needed, when we had an absence and on the board and filled in wonderfully for the last year. So thank you very much. I wanted to just, I guess, thank you for your service. I know that, we often will disagree at the board table, but I know that one thing we all agree about is that how wonderful our district is, and we're very optimistic and hopeful for our future and proud of our students and staff. So with that, I just wanted to open it up for comments. I know, Director Riley, you wanted to make a statement. So
I do. Do
Yeah.
you have?
Go ahead.
Okay. So bear with me here, because this was my way out. So, when I was elected in 2018, our community was experiencing the traumatic and devastating closures of neighborhood blue ribbon schools. Communities, families, and children were hurt. I campaigned for this seat on the platform of improving academics, responsible spending, and a better school environment. Much has happened. It is sometimes difficult to alter the trajectory of an organization whose ideals are on a different path. It may appear messy and seem unsettling. I was never one to run from an uncomfortable situation, and I am in favor of having tough conversations, especially if it is the start of progress. Many times in political environments, a few in opposition repeat enough falsehoods that the narrative grabs hold and the truth gets lost. Each one of us must become informed and seek accurate information. Ask questions, listen to understand, and use a variety of sources. Maintaining my core values and principles helped me to stay the course on this long and sometimes narrow road to change. SAP's leadership shifted. The community shared its expectations, and I believe we are finally on a path to academic excellence. If I refused to be persistent and the difficult votes regarding funding, staffing, and transparency did not occur, we would not be in the position we are in today, focusing on academic improvement. For the first time during my term, we have an administration that is not allergic to academic success. With a new superintendent and new administrative leadership, I am cautiously optimistic about the significant progress that lies ahead. I hope Stillwater Schools will be adding academic success to the already successful sports, music, and arts programming in the district. I suggest that the district be transparent. Whether it is curriculum, disbursements, or the budget, and follow the statutes with honorable intentions. I ask that you embrace hard conversations. Teachers, please respect parents and their values as they navigate raising their children in a world that drowns out innocence. Parents, partner with teachers. Call them, email them, personally communicate your concerns, and build a relationship. Encourage your children to develop habits that will help them be successful, self-reliant, and self-motivated. Empower your children to be responsible and have them take part in problem solving and seeking solutions. Teachers, parents, and students need to work together. The practice of accountability should be at the forefront. The district has policies in place that prohibit bullying and keep politics out of school. Schools need to be a place where children can learn in an environment where it is safe to fail, where it is okay to be wrong, and where it's okay to make a mistake. Children shouldn't fall apart if they face adversity. Challenges and adversity can be healthy. Being uncomfortable can be healthy. It is important to follow policy and teach accountability with grace. Principal teachers want to see students succeed. Confident children who are comfortable succeeding are what we all desire. We must work together as a team. I realize my advocacy for better public education has caused some to be uncomfortable, and recognize that it is about more than the adults in the room. It is about the children in the buildings. I experienced many things in this district that were disappointing, and it does no good to hold on to them. My primary concern about academic decline is not controversial and should have been an issue all could agree on. It saddens me that Lucy Calkins' curriculum, which has 0 published studies to support it, was recklessly purchased for this district. My confidence in the process by which Stillwater reviews programming is weak. As an educational institution, we have spent thousands of dollars paying private companies to tutor our students because this curriculum failed. A publicly funded entity with a $147 million budget specifically charged with the task of academics is using a private company to complete the task because Stillwater isn't doing the job. I've heard excuses at the board table and in district communications that everything is to blame except the actual curriculum itself. Founta's and Pinnell's leveled literacy and Calkins' units of study curriculum aren't sufficient, and more children may be harmed by teaching them to apply the strategies that poor readers use. It's fundamentally wrong, and it's a disproven theory. The Founta's and Pinnell benchmark assessment system and level literacy intervention program takes an enormous investment of time and money and may get readers to the next level, but studies show that reading skills had no discernible effects on sounding out words, and the studies don't show that the leveled literacy intervention program works when it comes to teaching kids the foundational skills that are necessary for becoming a good reader. Mental health is a key focus for this district. Continuing with this curriculum could create more barriers, stressors, and anxiety for our students. It's time to let go of Lucy Calkins. Stop wasting money on a program that has been proven not to work and find the money for an effective literacy curriculum. We can do better because we know better. Stop teaching poor reading strategies and put our students on track for success. Every day we put off fixing this mistake, children are put at risk. The district cannot afford to sit idle. It's time for us to lead and set our sights on a new literacy curriculum. I care for the children who attend our schools. I know many of them as if they belong to my family. My grandchildren are ponies. I will remain invested because this community matters to me. Thank you for allowing me to serve you. That's it.
And Director Bodema.
Yeah, I have something. I'm honored to have served the kids in the community this year as a school board member. The experience have given me insight and appreciation of the work that goes into a well-functioning school district for our kids. And working together as a board, administration, teachers, and community, we have accomplished a lot in the last year while I've been here. We opened a needed centrally located bus garage to allow for long-term lower busing costs due to our school district's shape and area. We found and contracted a new vendor for busing to ensure reliable busing for students and their parents. We passed a levy that kept our staff in the classrooms and allows us to modernize our IT infrastructure. We successfully concluded negotiations for various union contracts. We completed the expansion of Brookview, Brookview's capacity to help with our school capacity issues on the southern side of the district, and that problem is not completely solved yet. We approved renovation, which is due to be finished this spring break for our transitions program, so some of our more vulnerable students can learn life skills in adult environments that they will live in and not in an elementary classroom that they are in right now. And probably the most important strategic accomplishment was hiring an experienced superintendent who can lead us forward, putting needed personnel in places for our district to function efficiently, and who is in the process of helping update our strategic plan. And I think two things I think that are super important as part of the strategic plan. And in one, I agree with part of what Tina said, but partially not. It's very important to concentrate on the reading of our younger kids, because if they can't read, they can't learn. But I don't think it's necessarily a curriculum or a teacher or I don't think there's one root cause of the reading problems. And I think that if we really dig into it, we're going to find that there's several root causes, some of which might be how kids are learning, but a lot of it's going to be there's like too much screen time. It's affecting kids and how their brains are wired, and I think that's going to need to be dealt with and figured out so that we can get our kids reading. And I think it's a countrywide problem. It's not like just a Stillwater problem. And I also think, as part of the strategic plan, we should be looking at our buildings and thinking about how we can use our buildings more as revenue centers by, when we update our buildings, we can put in solar, we can put in geothermal, we can be getting energy like payments from our buildings, and we can use those revenue centers to reduce our tax burden on the community. And we can also use all those technologies to help kids in the Pathways program, because all of those skills of maintaining those systems and putting in those systems and understanding those systems will be very useful in the next 20 to 30 years. And it will also be useful for our district to help our budget for the next 20 to 30 years. And that's all. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, thank you to both of you for your service. I mean, it doesn't pay well, and it's a lot of time and it's a lot of commitment, but I know that you both are here with pure reasons for helping our students and our staff, and the impact that you made will not be forgotten. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to move on to public comment. And we have one speaker tonight. And Sarah, I apologize. I am going to butcher your last name. I don't even want to try.
It's Leistico.
Okay, Leistico.
I went from one hard last name to another.
Germans.
Thank you for the help. Thank you
Yes.
for the help. Welcome.
Thank you. Sarah Leistico, Stillwater, Minnesota. All right. I started paying attention to the school board about 6 years ago. I had a child entering the schools, and I was curious about learning more. I had graduated from Stillwater in 2011 and was keeping my fingers crossed that my son would have a better experience in education than I had received. It didn't take long to see that our schools and community were more divided, with bold being at the forefront to every conversation. When my mom decided to run for school board, I was hopeful. When she was elected, my hope turned into confusion. I saw accusations and assumptions, people who didn't care to know the truth, rumors, bullying, and even threats. The Stillwater I knew was gone. I was taught to stand up and be strong, fight for those who don't have a voice, not bring others down, and to always do the right thing. The longer my mom was in her position, the worse the bullying got. For example, my own child was brought up on a Facebook page with some current board members that we're a part of. No one called it out or deemed it inappropriate. When I started seeing adults who work at my child's school engaging in this behavior, how am I supposed to feel comfortable leaving my child at school? Why would any parent feel that their child is safe after reading these posts? With the help of my mom and a couple of amazing teachers, I decided not to pull him from the district. To have a mom like Tina is undescribable. I'm blessed beyond words. I know she has my back 1,000% and I have hers. When my oldest started school, he struggled. He had major issues with reading, along with many other students do currently. I reached out to my mom with my concerns. That same day, like a super grandma, she came over with all the resources we needed. At the end of kindergarten, his reading scores soared above grade level, and they currently do now. I'm so proud. Later, we got a glimpse of SEL. Because of this, my child was told at reading that he wasn't allowed to read harder books because it would make the other kids feel bad. We found this out at conferences. That year, my son declined and got bored of school and started getting into trouble. It wasn't fun for him anymore. One size does not fit all. My hope for the future board is to listen to every voice, to hear all concerns and opinions, to stop the continued division, and I want to congratulate my mom on finishing her 4-year term. It was no small feat. You kept true to yourself and what you raised us kids to do. You stood up, you were strong, you fought for those without a voice, and you always did the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, and that concludes public comment for this evening. So with that, we'll call our business meeting to order. Roll call, Joe?
Director Hocker?
Here.
Director Kelsenberg?
Here.
Director Petrie?
Here.
Director Porbenny? Director Riley?
Here.
Director Patava?
Here.
Chair Sherman?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we're moving on to approving tonight's agenda. I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the agenda if I can get a second. Director Kelsenberg, seconds. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're going to start this evening with our student report.
I can
Welcome.
start. I have our sports report. The girls' Nordic team opened their season with a win at the first conference meet of the year. The boys' team finished second. Boys hockey had a 6-goal third period in their 8-3 win over Eastridge on Saturday. They're hosting Matamidi tonight and Woodbury on Thursday afternoon. The girls' hockey team remains unbeaten in conference play with a 6-1 win over Forest Lake. They will host Cretin tonight. The boys' basketball team won a hard-fought game over White Bear Lake last Friday in front of a packed gymnasium. De La Salle defeated the Ponies on Saturday. The Ponies host Matamidi tonight and travel to UW River Falls on Thursday. The girls' basketball team dropped their first game of the season, a 76-69 decision to White Bear Lake last Friday. Their next game is December 30th against Blaine at home. The gymnasts are in action tomorrow against Cretin. The wrestling team took 10th place down in Rochester at the Matt Boss Christmas Tournament last weekend. They will wrestle in a triangular at Park tomorrow night. And the boys' swim and dive team are in action tonight against Mounds View.
And then I have the student report. Last week, NHS hosted Coffee House, which raised money for ALS as well as showcasing some of our local talents, as well as our choir, orchestra, and band held their annual winter concert, entertaining guests with seasonal classics. Homework for all grades has been starting to stack up, and everyone is ready for winter break. Many are looking forward to upcoming social events like hockey and basketball games. Office hours has been running smoothly and has had positive impacts on both students and teachers. However, many still feel pretty overwhelmed with finals approaching and lots of tests as winter break begins to near. But time off with winter break is expected to help.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the students? Okay, great. Moving on to Superintendent Funk's report.
So, people have been contacting me about the weather, imagine that. And so, being new to the Stillwater School District, we are in the process of implementing something called e-learning days, which I'm familiar with from my previous position. And so I thought I would just give a quick update to the board, and then I'm sure the students got a weather update question for me when I'm done here tonight. So if we have bad weather this winter, and we can't have classes in person, we will be utilizing e-learning days. And so e-learning days are meant to be asynchronous with students working on posted assignments or learning activities during their own time. The goal is to engage our students in learning, but not to recreate the full day of school. So students in pre-K through 5 will be given a choice board where there'll be different activities on it. There'll be 5 different activities they will be expected to try and complete throughout the day. Students in grades 6 through 12 will use their Chromebooks, and they will be given their assignments through Schoology, and students will be able to access their teachers during the school day. So it's a little bit different than, this is not your traditional, this is not online learning. So this is something different that schools can utilize instead of just taking the day off. It's some value added to the education process. It's not a complete replacement for school, but it does still provide some education for our students during the school day. So if we have an inclement weather day moving forward, we will be utilizing e-learning. And so that's what our communications will say. Your teachers, I'm sure there was a lot of chatter at the high school today because we sent a message out reminding staff this is what it looks like. And so, of course, that got everybody spun up thinking, okay, we're going to close school tomorrow. So here's the latest weather report. You guys want to hear this, or you sure you want to hear it? So the latest weather report is a ½ inch of snow between 6 a.m. and noon. So not very much snow in the morning. And then a couple, 2-3 inches between noon and, say, 4 o'clock. So it looks like we're going to have a full day of school tomorrow. The winds will not be very high. I do have a webinar with the National Weather Service at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning, which, if anything is updated, we may change and make a decision in the morning. But again, we try to make decisions by 5 a.m. so that we can get the word out to folks. So that's a little bit of background on the e-learning process and kind of some of the things we do as far as making decisions for school. So that's my report.
Great.
Thank you.
And any questions for a superintendent?
Can I just ask a quick question? So why would we do an e-learning versus a snow day? Could you talk a little bit about kind of the value of having the e-learning versus just the?
Yeah, I think a snow day, well, there's two different, there is your educational value, which and I will tell you from experience, it's much more valuable at the secondary level than I think is at the elementary level. So at the secondary level, kids have assignments that they get through their teachers, through the the school, basically management system we use for students. And it's valuable because they can do the assignments, and then even if it's not that assignment they're working on, they can still reach out to their teachers during the day. So we talk about, our early outs on Wednesdays where we have office hours. This is another day during the week that can happen. Elementary, it's more, here's something in math, here's something in reading, here's something in Phi-Ed, here's something in science that you pick from, not necessarily aligned with what is going on that day in the classroom. Some value, it also provides parents an opportunity if their kids are at home or if they're at a daycare environment, here's something to do with your students while they're at home. So the Minnesota Department of Education has authorized 5 e-learning days a year for school districts to utilize in lieu of snow days. Like I said, it's not a perfect replacement for learning, but we still have teachers available in the learning process can move forward to some degree.
Yes.
So how many snow days then? 5 e-learning days that are authorized? How many snow days are authorized? 1.
We used to have 2, but because of the Ready, Set, Go conferences at the beginning of the school year and the minimum number of days of instruction we have, or hours of instruction in the school year, we have 1 snow day, which we've already had last week, and so then we've got these 5 e-learning days moving forward. So.
Great. Yes, Director Vodova?
If the younger kids don't have to use devices, how do we ensure that everyone has access?
I had these choice boards, which are like bingo cards, were sent home with every student today in the elementary.
Okay,
So
so
that
you
they
have to
had-
think ahead. to-
Yes,
to
so we had this conversation today, and so every student usually has a folder that goes home with them. So what I suggest for the future is when we have our Ready, Set, Go conferences at the beginning of the year and we pass these folders out, we put the choice board in there so it's ready. We also have them online if a kid somehow misses it from getting it home. So, but the direction was given today, every student should have one of these going home. Yes?
Do early releases count as snow days or?
Nope,
Nope, those are just.
they don't. So you can still hope for that tomorrow, huh?
Does it depend what time the early release is at?
No.
No? Okay.
Used to be years and years ago, okay, we got to keep them till lunch. No,
Okay.
that's not.
Great. All right, we'll move on. I don't have anything tonight for my board chair report, so we'll move to the consent agenda. And we'll display that on the screen. And ask for a motion to approve items A, B, C, D, E, and F. Director Petrie? Great. And
I'll
second?
second.
Director Hockert seconds. All those in favor of approving tonight's consent agenda, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, first action item of this evening, and we're going to bring up, I guess, Marie, you coming up? We're going to certify the 2002 payable 2023 tax levy. Hey.
Good evening, Chair Sherman, members of the board, Superintendent Funk. So this evening before you is the final levy certification, and that's for taxes payable in 2023. So back at our board meeting on December 8th, Interim Director of Finance Julie Sink presented our current budget information along with the proposed tax levy to you, and provided a presentation with our truth in taxation, and at that time provided the same information you see before you on our general fund, which you can see the number is just a little over 39 million for our proposed taxes payable for next year. Our community service fund is just a little bit over $1 million, and our debt service fund for taxes payable next year is roughly 9.8 million. So before you this evening for that final certification and approval is for a total amount of $49,896,098.69. So that is before you this evening for approval.
Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve this, if I can get a second. Director Kelsenberg, any questions for Marie? Yes, Director Riley.
I have to go. You guys are going to miss this. Okay, so the district already receives QComp funding from the state. We have never levied for additional non-voter approved QComp taxes. I may be more sympathetic to the need for QComp, except that we have not seen an ROI on student achievement from that program. And as a matter of fact, there are emails from the QComp committee that said they want to utilize the non-voter approved tax money to implement comprehensive unionism. When I started in 2018, the district was levying roughly 27 million. We are currently asking for 39 million out of our general budget, or for our general budget. So my husband and I were out this weekend, and while we were in the checkout line at a local store, in as little as 10 minutes, 3 separate families around us experienced either declined cards or debit cards with insufficient funds. I think we as a district need to think about our greater community. It may seem like pennies to those up at this table, but it may be the choice of having food on their table. Inflation is hitting our community, and I think it's appropriate not to utilize power to grab money from those that may be struggling. I mean, if you think about it, as a government entity, suggesting we take money from those, right, non-voter approved levies I'm talking about, that may be struggling, and then they have to turn around and ask the government for money to put food on their table. It's a terrible cycle and a terrible message. When I started my term, I asked district administration to do ROIs on our programming, and that never happened. I suggest we take that this district take a good look at, what it's spending money on and shift resources to ensure that the money we're spending is increasing academic outcomes. I would like to make an amendment to the motion. I would like to reduce the long-term facilities maintenance levy from $116,990 to $5,116,990. Eliminate Q-Comp, which is $77,671.11, bringing the general fund levy to $36,999,375.41, which is a reduction of $2,077,671.11. And the total levy for taxes payable in '23 is $47,818, I always do that, $427.58.
We have an amendment. Does it have a second? No second, so we're back to the original motion. Any other comments or questions? Director Bodova?
I have a question, and you might not know this, but how many more houses are being levied? Like, I thought my school taxes actually went down. I think there's a lot more houses in the levy now than there were 6 years ago.
We do, I don't have a number for you on the houses, but the tax base is expanding significantly.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second to approve the taxes payable for 2023. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. And thank you, Marie. Okay, the next action item is the Be Smart resolution, and we're going to turn that over to Superintendent Funk.
So about a month ago, we had Erica Osterreich from the Be Smart Group speak to the board, and the board was interested in a resolution to show the support to really secure firearms at home for families throughout our community. So what I have for you is a resolution that we received from Be Smart for your consideration this evening.
Great. It was in the packets. I'm sure everyone had a chance to read it. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but I know we were very appreciative of Be Smart when they came out to speak, and it's certainly the safety of our students is very important to everyone in the room and everyone in our community. So, yes, Director Riley.
Just one question. I think it's the second to the last, resolve further. And on it, it is requiring a signature acknowledging awareness of secure gun storage responsibility. What does that look, what if it's not signed? What does that look like? What are the, I guess we don't have the power to do anything with that.
No, so basically what we do is we have a number of forms that parents receive at the beginning of the school year. This would be added to those forms. If they choose not to, they choose not to, but it's, when someone signs their name to something, it's more of a commitment that, okay, I'm going to agree to this, but we cannot require,
Right.
but
Okay.
we're going to ask.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes, Director.
I'm just going to go ahead and move to adopt the resolution.
Great. I'll go ahead and second that, Director Kelsenberg. And if there are any more questions, we can ask those now. If not, we can just move to approve the resolution, and it needs a roll call vote. So with a first and a second, we'll do the roll call vote, Joan.
Director Huckert,
Yes.
Director Kelsenberg,
Yes.
Director Petrie,
Yes.
Director Portbenny, Director Riley,
Yes.
Director Patava,
Yes.
Chair Sherman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for working with Be Smart to get that done, Dr. Funk. All right, our last action item for this evening is approval of new policy 522. My guess is that Assistant Superintendent Sherry's coming.
Good evening.
And there's three actually in this, so
Yes. Thank you,
522,
Chair
428, and 524.
Board Director, Superintendent Funk. We do have three policies we would like to move forward and recommend for adoption this evening. The first policy is our Title IX policy. It's policy number 522. This is a new policy for our school district, specifically in outlining our procedures for sex non-discrimination policy. I believe we should
Do separate vote.
do separate votes for each of these.
Great. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve policy 522 on this third read.
Second.
Okay. We have a second. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approving policy 522, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Policy passes.
Thank you. And the next two policies are related. These are both technology related. The first one is 428, the Employee Technology and Internet Access and Acceptable Use. And the second is 524, Student Technology and Internet Access and Acceptable Use. These are revised policies. They've come before the board two separate times for readings on the proposed revisions. And at this time, we're recommending adoption of the policies as rewritten.
Great. So first up is policy 428, if there's a motion to pass that.
So moved.
Okay, Director Hockert. Director Kelsenberg is seconding. All those in favor of passing policy 428, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And so now we'll move on to policy 524, the Student Technology and Internet Access and Acceptable Use. I'll go ahead and make that motion to approve it. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Director Petrie. All those in favor of passing policy 524, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And then this evening, we're going to move on to our reports, and Dr. Cherry's going to stick around.
I'm going to stay put. Thank you, Chair Sherman. We have a series of 3 related policies. These are our alcohol, tobacco, and other drug-related policies. The first for your review is policy 416, and that's a proposed revised number for a drug and alcohol testing policy. This policy used to be numbered SR 1.5. As you can see in the strikeout language here, this was a very simple policy in that it was really a statement, and it was adopted in 1994. So this is a little time in the making here in terms of examination of this policy and some updating. And so what we have in front of you is follows current state statute. This is also in alignment with our MSBA model policy for drug and alcohol testing, and it's specific to our employees in the school district. And so with that, I'm open to any questions that you might have and receptive of any comments. And this is a first reading for the proposed revisions.
Great. If anyone had any immediate questions, they can certainly ask them now, or you can email that feedback to Dr. Funk and Dr. Cherry. And I guess we'll be changing policy committees, but for now, Director Hockert.
And I will just keep going because, again,
Yeah.
there are 3 policies
Yep.
and they're all related. The second one in your packet for review is our drug-free workplace. And this is policy currently 419. We are proposing that we change the policy number to align again with our new numbering sequence and align this with MSBA's same numbering sequence. And so the add-on to this is not only drug-free workplace, but also drug-free schools. This one's just a little bit older than the last one. This one was adopted in 1990, so we are primed for some updates here. With that, again, this is our drug-free workplace, drug-free schools policy. Within this policy, we do have I guess I should just let you know that the reason why there was initial instigation for an update on the sequence of policies is some new legislation that was passed over this summer, and specifically about types of edible cannabinoid products. And so that just wanting to again reinforce that any kind of intoxicating substances would be prohibited in our schools. And so there's some further definitions about what that means, some exceptions about what kinds of substances are appropriate or not appropriate in our schools, and then some specific procedures that, again, some of this points back to the last policy we just talked about with our testing policy that was proposed. So with that, open again to any comments, questions, or feedback. This is a first reading. If there are any questions, I think I'll just go on to the next policy first and then take them up. Okay, and then the next one is a tobacco-free environment. This one, again, is a policy that was last updated in 1985. So get some old stuff here that we're trying to bring up to date, and again, around current legislation and ensuring that we have a more thorough and thought-out policy than you can see. We had really a pretty broad level statement previously. And so with that, open to any comments, questions, and again, thank you, Chair Sherman, for the suggestion. Email is also a good way to do that.
Great.
I guess I have a question. I mean, it makes sense to have a policy, but it seems like vaping is like rampant in the schools and in the parking lots, and there doesn't seem to be a way to enforce the policy, so I don't know, like, it seems to be a little, I mean, it's okay to have a policy, but do we have any plan on how to, like, enforce any of this?
That is, it is very challenging.
Yes.
So, do we allow it? No. Does it happen? Yes. So, I mean, we work with our community partners. You know, I think one of the things I would be curious to take a look at is, you know, what are we doing to educate our families on vaping? And, you know, proactively meeting with parents and what's it look like, and I think there's an opportunity there. But we are, I mean, you're absolutely right. It is an issue, and just with technology, I mean, it is so much more difficult to catch.
Yeah, because kids will they'll tell each other like, oh yeah, there's teachers near that bathroom.
Yeah.
Go to the other bathroom.
Right.
I mean, like, you know, it's kind of.
And so, but I think we as a school community need to do a better job of evaluating, okay, because I think what you're saying is we're reactive to it, which we are, but being reactive is not going to solve the problem. So what can we do on the front end, working with families to help address it? And so that's my take on it.
Any other questions? Okay, and again, just feel free to continue to reach out to Dr. Cherry or Superintendent Funk with your feedback. Now we're going to our next report, which is a second reading for revised policies, and these are a set of curriculum policies, 601, 603, 604, and 606.
All right, and so with this one, we're bringing up Dr. Caleb Drexler Booth to help out with the second reading, as he was here for the first reading. And I believe, just going to pass it over to you. See if there's a thing.
Yeah.
specific you want to kick it off?
We looked at, the four policies, 601, 603, 604. And as I recall, we got through quite a bit of 606. That's a much larger policy, and I believe there was quite a bit of discussion on that one.
And do you want to take this as, like, anyone asks any more questions or provides feedback? I know this is a second reading. I'll leave it up to you. I know I've been taking my comments offline, and just kind of emailing them and back to the committee. But if anyone else had read any of these, I don't know if you're okay with us just opening it up for these?
I think that would be great. We, based on the comments, we did make changes from the first read to the second, and so you'll see that reflected in the documents before you.
So this is the second read, so there is still time for everyone to review with the changes that have been made, where we're at after the first read. And again, any additional comments, either from the community or from the board itself, are welcome, and to send to the committee itself to, to you perhaps as the point person, Jennifer?
Yes, please, if you could send those to me.
Okay.
I just wanted to point out just a couple of the
Yeah,
changes that
yep.
we made since the first
That would be great.
reading. And again, more clarifiers than I think extremely substantive changes, but some clarifications to the challenge procedures. Again, streamlining the language a little bit, trying to make that more clear for individuals that would want to follow the step-by-step procedures. And so all of the changes are notated in the policy. I think there was a question that did arise just recently about the what happens when there is a challenge and the review committee that's established that reviews the challenged material and makes a recommendation to the superintendent of what to do with that, clarifying again the membership of the committee and then the role of the board in the final end of making the decisions about any kind of instructional resources that are challenged.
So, the question came up earlier today regarding that. So if we have a committee that meets, they review the challenge, what's the board's role in this whole process? And in some places, the board, they're handcuffed and they don't get a vote. And so my comment to some folks today while talking through this is the board are the elected officials of the community. They are the ones who encompass the values of the community. So they should be the ones who, they are going to decide, okay, yes, administration, professionally you may believe this, but here's the values of our community, and here is what we are going to say, and it may be consistent or inconsistent with what the administration has decided moving forward. But I really think that is what we have elected officials for in circumstances such as this. We let it go through the process, and then it would come to you for a decision. And so we've seen some districts that do have that, some that do not. But that's what we would have in our policy here.
And then it only comes to the board, just for clarification, if one of the parties is unsatisfied.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Yes, Director Riley.
Not on that particular topic, but on the selection of textbooks and other materials. I just want to make sure that there is going to be ample time when you give it to the board, that the board has time to review and know what they're voting on prior, and so they're brought along in the process, and I'm not sure. It's important that they're knowledgeable in the curriculum. And then in that same, like number 7, it says, it's 606-3, C, number 7, to be used in a manner that enable students to recognize potential bias. And I know we all have bias, right? So I'm not arguing that point, but I'm curious to know what that looks like in a classroom setting. I've heard things from other students, and I think I had sent an email early on about books, and that certain student didn't agree with or didn't care for the material that they had read, and then they were handled indifferently. And I struggle with the way we bring our courses forward, because you bring the course forward for the board to approve the concept, but there's no materials that come with it. And so then it comes back, it kind of bites us later because we don't know what we're approving. And so then I've just opened floodgates to something and voted yes for something which I'm voting with that I don't know anything about. And so I think that's a real bad process, and I would love to see that different, because then parents and students may not even know, what they're signing up for in their courses. And so with some of these, and I'm kind of jumbling everything together, but if your materials aren't laid out in a syllabus ahead of time, and I know not all courses have a syllabus laid out for everybody and for parents to view, then it's hard sometimes for them to know what they're signing up for and if that is a class they want to participate in or not. So.
Goes back to the process you were just talking about
Right.
last meeting.
Yeah, so that's the process that we use within our curricular review cycle to review all of the core materials. And specifically within, point 7 here, recognizing that bias comes out in text in multiple ways. And so as I look at that line, it really speaks to the need to develop the critical media literacy as well. So that as we look at the text from wherever they might come, we're able to recognize not only from which perspective or how they're biased, but also the techniques that they're used to demonstrate or hide what bias may exist.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I just know that with my experiences with some staff within this district, I was pretty much gaslit by that staff member to the entire outside community in Stillwater and beyond. And I would hope that we did not treat our students that same way, and that we love all for who they are, how they were born, however they are. And so we're not to make students feel ashamed of who they are, but learn to understand each other. And that's what I hope we would practice.
Part of it is the professional development of our staff to educate them on how to effectively teach and value perspective. Because if they're not doing it in a proper way, regardless of what material we're using,
Yeah.
you're not going to be as successful.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add, when I look at points 4, 5, and 6 together, it really represents that perspective as well, that we're looking for diverse perspectives, diverse views, respecting of diverse opinions within that context.
Great. Thanks.
Yep.
Again, this is just a second read. I don't know if you had more points you wanted to make or.
I don't think there were really
I
a whole
don't-
lot of
yeah.
substantive changes other than that one.
Yep.
Okay. Not at this time.
Okay.
We will come back for a third reading though. So again, if there are additional comments or questions, things that you would like us to review again before we come back for a third reading, please send those our way.
Great. And this is an important series, so I would encourage community members, parents, families, to be looking at this as well, so.
Just one additional point. I also just want to give a huge shout out to our World's Best Workforce District Advisory Committee that worked tirelessly all of last year in providing input and feedback on these policies. There were a lot of staff members, in addition to community members, that spent a whole lot of time looking at policy, which isn't always the most fun thing for everyone. I don't know why. I think they're fantastic. But I just want to thank that advisory committee. They worked tirelessly on ensuring that we had very solid policies to propose to the board for review.
Great. Great, okay. So keep the feedback coming, and we'll see it again at the next meeting. And then, let's see, we have one last report. Director Hockert is our 916 representative, and she wanted to share an update.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to just, as our last meeting of the year, I've been the board rep for 916 for 2 years now, and thought it would just be nice to throw a couple highlights out there for what we've done this year and something that I attended recently. So a couple things just to highlight 916 in the past year. Our big thing was getting the JPA, our Joint Powers Agreement, all settled. That was kind of the end of last year, carried over, and now it is officially ratified. So that kind of clears up the parameters for if members would need to leave 916. That was a big accomplishment. 2 new policies were added this year. We established a fund balance for 916 for the first time. Before this, they did not have one. So that was a fund balance that we agreed on was 10 to 15%. For 916. And then we also added a new policy, an equity policy as well. So that was a policy that there is no model policy for it yet, but a few of the member districts have been working on that policy, and 916 kind of leaned on them a little bit to have staff create their own equity policy. So that also was approved this year. Another kind of fun thing, there was a student-built house that some of our students from our district participated in this great program where they renovate an entire house. And actually, Chair Sherman and I got to go visit, and Director Kelsenberg was there as well, and take a tour. And our kids were so proud of the amazing work that they did and really some very practical skills. So that was kind of a fun highlight for me for the year. Another big program that they are now adopting is Standard Response Protocol. And that is something that our district has also adopted recently. And that's the event that I attended at the end of November. They invited in the I Love You Guys Foundation to do a staff training and to introduce this program to all the member districts. Not very many of the member districts are currently using this program. Stillwater is one of the ones that has adopted it recently, and one of the first things they talked about is needing to establish it in policy, which at our last board meeting last month, we approved policy 806. So that is now the updated information and actual standard response protocol language in our policy as well. And that was one of the things that was really important in the presentation. The keynote speaker was really the reason I wanted to go. She was amazing. Her name is Carly Posey, and she is a parent of Sandy Hook students. So 2 of her children survived the Sandy Hook shooting, which now just the 10-year anniversary was like a week ago. So she had a very poignant presentation for us as a parent and what it felt like to go through an incredible tragedy and how her life has continued, and her students, as survivors, have had to readapt to going to school and continuing their education because her kids were in elementary school because it was elementary school. So one of the big things that she brought home was how important that communication piece was, and having common language in understanding that the language that schools are using for communicating to parents, to staff, and also to law enforcement agencies is all in alignment so that we really can have clear, efficient communication, factual communication, because unfortunately when tragedy strikes, it can be very difficult and not a whole lot of time to think. So doing that planning ahead is really, really important. So that was really strong takeaway for me. At the end of, around lunchtime, the superintendent of 916 did pull me aside and said that she's been talking with our staff and was super impressed with the videos that we have implemented, our student videos, to kind of start the communications for our kids to our kids as well. So it just made me really proud of being a pony and the work that our staff is doing. And I encourage our staff to continue. Obviously, safety is an incredibly important topic these days, both for the board. We approved our resolution tonight, and the staff in creating, adopting this new program. So I just wanted to highlight that and commend our staff for the great work that you guys are doing. It's very much appreciated. So, yes,
Well,
questions?
thank you for being on the 916 committee or board or whatever it is. But I had a question. You said you approved a 10 to 15% fund balance. I was wondering, I guess, what that means for Stillwater. Like, how much money is it? Where does it come from our budget? Like, what does
So-
that mean?
Yeah, and the 916, since it's an intermediate district, their funding is very different. I mean, just regular school district funding is pretty complex, but their funding is also different as well. And they, at the time that we approved it, I think they had like a 15% fund balance. So this was going to be kind of setting the parameters for that district.
This doesn't cost us something.
Nope, I mean, nothing additional in any way. It's something that they've been operating with for a while, just without a policy. So, thank you for the question.
With no other questions, thank you for that update, Director Hockert. We are adjourned, so thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Merry Christmas.